Hi guys. Oh, what, you never seen a guy in a shopping trolley before? Some people are so judgmental. Oh, this is probably the weirdest place anybody's ever had like an existential crisis. Today we're going to be talking about big boys. I really like big boys. Oh, I just realised how that sounds. No, I'm not talking about the things that you're imagining in your dirty little minds. I'm of course talking about big lumbering giants, big titan creatures that you see in movies and video games. Now, I've touched on this topic before in reference to Shadow of the Colossus. The thing which really got my juices flowing this time was playing through God of War 2018. I was just sitting there playing through the first levels of God of War, just really cursing my lack of skill in any sort of video game ever, when all of a sudden this lovable giant turtle comes on screen. And I'll make a confession to you all, I think I fell in love that day, because this big boy is just so perfect. He's adorable. And this got me thinking about the big boys in my animated film, Big Mountain. From what I can gather, there's currently 3 big boys in my film. That's the forest spirit from the bamboo forest that I've tried redesigning a couple times, but never really been fully happy with. There's the sky whale, who appears sort of in the middle of the movie, that we've roughly touched on before, but never properly tried to design. And then there's the big crab guy that comes out of the frozen lake that again hasn't really been fleshed out too much. So yeah, hopefully by the end of today we'll have 3 quintessential big boys. So we should probably get into the drawing section of this video now to distract from the fact that I'm currently sat in a shopping trolley in the middle of a random field of yellow flowers. Okay, see you in a minute.
So if you haven't seen this series before, my animated film idea, Big Mountain, unsurprisingly revolves around a big mountain in a fantasy world. The characters who race to reach the top of this mountain will face many dangers along their journey, and the 3 giant creatures I'm going to draw today are some of those. For some reason when I was drawing, I decided to go in reverse order as to when they appear in the movie, so we're actually going to be starting near the top of the mountain today at a big frozen lake which sits right beneath its snowy summit. Initially, my idea was that the characters would venture out onto the ice, and all of a sudden this giant crab would come bursting up to the surface and chase them back to shore. I've put that in very simple terms there, but all in all, I wasn't quite convinced with the crab idea, so I thought, what if instead there's just this huge frozen giant living at the bottom of the lake? That seems much more dramatic to me anyway. I've said this before, but I've always really loved these Colossus type creatures. You know, whenever there's some sort of golem or giant elemental in a game or film, I just think they're really cool. This design in particular I was roughly basing on Gaius, who's I think my favourite titan from Shadow of the Colossus. It's hard to choose between them all, to be honest, but I did want to make my design unique though. I didn't want to just copy, so in order to make it look like it had been sitting underwater for a long time, I made his body a bit more sort of strange and malformed, and then I added these massive barnacles all over him, sort of similar to how I did with the crab before. I think I could have gone more extreme with this, maybe added some more colour to him, more shading, and perhaps some like shards of ice coming out of him or something, just something else to make him a bit more exciting. Seeing as it was my first attempt at the video and I'm not too experienced at drawing these kind of huge scale characters, what I came up with I think is okay. Maybe I just needed to spend a little longer on it. I've also been thinking about the story with regards to this part of the movie. It's definitely the part I've given the smallest amount of thought to, but I'll get more into that sometime in the future once I've worked things out a bit more. Moving on to the second piece then, which as I said is actually further back in the film, I made an attempt at revamping the sky whale. Again, I've covered this part of the film before, but just in short, the main cast of characters will travel out into the sky in search of a weatherman's missing weather balloon, and what they'll find is that it's been swallowed up by a huge sky whale. I was thinking predominantly about the way the whale will make its entrance, and just thinking about how I can make that sort of more grand and epic. Here's the idea I came up with. So the characters are just drifting along peacefully at sunset, scanning the horizon, when they come across this vast area of clouds. And just as the sun is blocked from view, the clouds all rush upwards in this weird cosmic-y swirling torrent, transforming themselves into the shape of a whale. So when the whale forms, it's kind of all spacey and mysterious inside. And the other reason this is good is because if the whale is translucent, because he's made of clouds, we'll be able to see the weather balloon inside his belly, and that gives the characters something to aim for. I forgot to mention, by the way, the weather balloon is actually an inflatable ghost called Bon Mungus. I realise that sounds very strange, but you can go watch this other video if you want to hear more about about that. So I'm hoping this will make this scene much more visually impressive, and it also kind of ties into the lore that's already surrounding this area. The skies around this part of the mountain are full of floating lighthouses, which are manned by these shepherds who weave flocks of sheep out of the clouds. So perhaps they learnt this technique from the giant sky whale long ago, and then passed it down the generations. Or something like that, I don't know. And then we come to the final drawing I did today, which relates to the spirit of the bamboo forest. I've also covered this character a few times before, but I've always struggled when it's come to designing him. I think the main thing is I made him a bit too humanoid. I feel like a spirit of the forest should be a bit more misshapen or rugged. And now that we've got this big humanoid stone guy in the frozen lake, that opens up the opportunity to experiment with the forest spirit a bit. As I mentioned before, the giant turtle from God of War really inspired me in this sense. I just love the way its roots kind of twist down its shell, and something about him's just so gentle and nice. I suppose the same thing goes for something like Torterra from Pokemon, so I was using these sorts of things as references when I was drawing. I didn't want to make my guy a turtle though, because that's very much been done before, so instead, I don't know what he is, he's just kind of a pile of rocks with arms and legs. But I thought this piece was going quite well actually. That is until I started to add these stone armor pieces to his arms. I wasn't really sure about these at the time. A lot of the Colossi from Shadow of the Colossus wears this sort of stone armor similar to this, so that's where I got the idea from, but it took a bit of messing around with before it didn't seem completely out of place. Eventually though, after adding some patterns and designs, it kind of worked, and especially once I got some more greens in there, everything felt like it fitted together much better. I actually now think without the stone armor, his design would be a bit empty. And then it was finally time to add the huge tree on his back. It would have been irresponsible really to have a spirit of the forest that doesn't have a giant tree on his back, but this also makes sense because the place that he appears from is in fact the burnt ashes of a giant tree. I added these little blue lanterns hanging off the branches. The forest floor around here is covered with these little blue flowers. The idea is that when the forest is burnt down, spoilers, these fire-resistant blue flowers are the only things that remain amongst the ash. And so it seems sensible that the spirit who regenerates this forest would have some sort of element of blue about him as well. And there we go, the only thing left to do now is think about how this all ties together in relation to the narrative, because with this many big boys in a story, there needs to be a real reason for each one to exist. I need to figure out some way that they'll force the main character to overcome some part of himself and grow and progress. Just in terms of general lore though, maybe we could say, since time began, the great mountain has been tended by 4 ancient wardens, or something like that. I imagine them being these big spirits who are kind of caretakers in a sense. They make sure that their area of the mountain has a sense of balance about it. So these 3 that I've drawn today have a purpose within the world. You might have noticed by the way that I said 4 wardens. That was no mistake on my part, but I'm going to keep the 4th one a little secret for now. Ooh, how exciting. Anyway, I often come out of these drawing sessions thinking, why am I so terrible at drawing, and wanting to cry. But this time, in a rare twist of events, I'm actually pretty happy with the work I did this episode. It's not perfect by any means, but let me know in the comments which one is your favourite, what do you think is good about them, and what would you maybe change or improve. And that's it really, that's 3 big boys for you all to digest and savour.
So there we are, that was the drawings for today. Yes, I'm still in the shopping trolley. Do you really think I can get out of here? I'm literally going to be in here until I biodegrade and turn into soil. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the drawings I did today. Thanks very much for watching. If you feel even an inkling inspired by any of the stuff that I've done today, then you can submit, like fan art and your own drawings to the Discord. There's a whole section called Show Us Your Art, and I really appreciate when people send in sort of fan art surrounding this movie to there. Also, this animated film idea has a Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous, then please go support me on there, and I guess I'll probably end the video here. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Oh my god. Jeez. I just found this trolley like in the middle of a forest over there. I don't even know what to do with it now. I guess I'll like go and try and find a bin or something. Bye everyone, see you next time, bye.